Before I begin, please do listen carefully, because these are not opinions, these are questions India must ask. These are serious questions. Why were maps of proposed Kukiland or Zalengam already circulating years before the violence of May 2023? Why has the idea of a separate Kuki nation been openly discussed in writings attributed to figures like S.S. Haukip, a former Kuki militant leader? Why did large-scale violence erupt immediately after specific political and legal developments in Manipur? Why are Kukis again locking horns with the Nagas now? If these are coincidences, then they demand explanation. If they are not, then they demand attention. My fellow citizens of mainland India, today we are not here to speak in half-truths. We are here to confront a narrative that has long operated in the shadows, the idea of Zalengam, a proposed Kuki homeland. This is about armed militant groups and separatist ideologies that have, over time, articulated a vision that goes beyond coexistence and moves toward separation. And what are the evidences? First, the maps. Maps that have circulated for years depict a proposed homeland extending beyond Manipur into parts of Myanmar and Bangladesh. These are not just random sketches. They reflect intent, imagination, and long-term thinking. The second evidence, the ideological narratives. The concept of a separate Kuki nation has been discussed in writings attributed to individuals like S.S. Haukip. This shows that the idea is not new. It is structured, it is articulated. So the question is no longer whether such an idea exists. The question is, how and when was it intended to be pursued? The right opportunity, the right moment to pull the trigger. And then came May 3rd, 2023, the turning point, a date that will remain etched in the history of Manipur. The immediate triggers are known. The Manipur government's notice against encroachments in reserve forest areas. And the second one, the High Court's directive related to scheduled tribe status for the Meiteis. But here is what mainland India must ask. Was this merely a protest that spiraled out of control, or did it become the perfect moment, the spark for pre-existing militant ambitions to surface? Because when pre-existing ideas, documented narratives, and sudden large-scale violence intersect, it is no longer enough to call it to be a coincidence. It was premeditated. Now another layer is emerging, tensions involving Kuki militants and the Naga groups. Why is this important for India to understand? Here, the point to be noted is that the Kukis had already failed in their first attempt. First, they waged war against the Meiteis instead of confronting the government's order, which they felt unacceptable. And then, when Meiteis retaliated with their full might, the Kukis played the victim and started pursuing the pre-existing militant ambition of Zalengam, but in a different perspective, the separate administration. But all these propagandas and all these narratives fall flat when the Union Home Ministry outrightly rejected their demand. If, in case, the demand of separate administration was fulfilled, it could have been a milestone for the Kukis. One step closer to their whispered destiny, Zalengam, a Kuki nation. So when their first attempt failed, they had to look for other options to pursue their agenda and to justify their demand. And And that's why the Kukis started locking horns with the Nagas again. Because when multiple conflict lines appear, a narrative can take shape. A narrative of isolation, a narrative of being surrounded by hostility, a narrative that can then be used to justify separation. Besides this, we must also be aware about the fact that these people are not peace-loving community. They don't want peace and normalcy to return. Because if peace prevails, the ambition of their militants, the ambition of separation would be submerged. Therefore, they had to keep the pot boiling. The whole country had seen the chaos and turmoil in Kuki areas when their three representatives, the three Kuki MLAs, joined the newly formed popular government of Manipur. These three Kuki MLAs had categorically stated that their motives behind joining the government was to give peace a chance, to resolve the issue on the table through peaceful dialogues and discussions. But a belligerent and barbaric community, backed by the militants, have no faith in peaceful dialogues and discussions. Manufactured narratives cannot become the basis of legitimacy. Conflict cannot be used as a tool to redraw boundaries. And violence cannot be the language of political negotiation. So, what must be done? First, we must expose militant agendas with facts, not emotions. Question every narrative that emerges during conflict. Demand accountability from armed groups operating outside the law. And ensure that democratic processes, not militant blueprints, decide the future. Let us not be misled by slogans. Let us not be manipulated by fear. Because the truth is, no map drawn in secrecy can override the will of the people. No militant vision can erase centuries of shared history. And no conflict, no matter how intense, can justify breaking the fabric of Manipur. This is not just a political issue. This is a test of truth, awareness, and unity, and the people of Manipur must rise to meet it. Thank you for listening.